and total domination. In 480 BCE, at the narrow pass of Thermopylae, one of history's most legendary last stands unfolded. King Leonidas of Sparta and his 300 elite soldiers joined a small Greek force to halt the advance of the mighty Persian Empire. Outnumbered by thousands, they didn't fight for victory. They fought for time, honor, and their people. This wasn't just a military clash, it was a defiant stand against overwhelming odds. What happened here would echo through the centuries. Thermopylae was where courage became myth. In the early 5th century BCE, Persia had grown into a colossal empire under King Xerxes. Determined to conquer all of Greece, Xerxes launched a massive invasion, crossing the Hellespont with what ancient sources claim were over 2 million troops, though modern estimates suggest hundreds of thousands. The Greeks, fragmented but fiercely proud, faced a dire threat. Realizing that unity was their only hope, several city-states, including Athens and Sparta, formed a fragile alliance. They decided to make a stand at Thermopylae, a narrow coastal pass perfect for defense. The strategy used the terrain to neutralize the Persian advantage in numbers. The Spartans, led by King Leonidas, took the front line. The Spartans weren't ordinary soldiers. They were raised from childhood for war. Trained to endure pain, fight without fear, and die without hesitation, they followed a strict warrior code. Leonidas selected 300 of his best men, all of whom had sons to carry on their names. He knew this could be a death mission. Alongside them stood a few thousand allies from other Greek regions, forming a united defense force. But it was the Spartans' discipline and bravery that defined the battle. They were there not just to resist, but to inspire all of Greece. As the Persian forces approached, the Spartans stood calm, shields raised and unshaken. For 2 full days, the Persians launched wave after wave of attacks. Yet the Greek phalanx, tight formations of overlapping shields and long spears, held firm. At Thermopylae, the narrow terrain worked perfectly. The vast Persian numbers became meaningless, funneled into a bottleneck of blood and chaos. Even the elite Persian immortals couldn't break through the Spartan lines. Leonidas personally led charges, rallying his men with unwavering resolve. Despite their exhaustion, the Greeks held back the tide. Xerxes grew frustrated and humiliated, unable to crush a force that was supposed to be insignificant. But heroism couldn't outlast betrayal. A local Greek named Ephialtes revealed a hidden mountain path to Xerxes, one that would allow the Persians to flank the defenders. Realizing they were about to be surrounded, Leonidas made a final decision. He dismissed most of the Greek troops, keeping only his 300 Spartans and a few hundred loyal allies. They would hold the pass to the death to buy time for the Greek cities to prepare. This act wasn't just tactical, it was symbolic. The Spartans chose sacrifice, knowing their story would live on longer than their lives. On the 3rd day, the Persians attacked from both front and rear. The remaining Greeks fought with fury, wielding swords, spears, and even their bare hands when weapons failed. Leonidas was killed early in the assault, and his men fought over, his body to keep it from being taken. Surrounded and exhausted, they fought until every last one had fallen. The battle was over, but the impact had just begun. Word of their sacrifice spread like wildfire. Across Greece, it lit a flame of resistance and unity. The Persian advance was stalled, morale broken. Thermopylae wasn't a victory by conventional standards, but it was a triumph of spirit. The sacrifice of the 300 Spartans became a rallying cry that ultimately helped unify the Greeks in future battles, like Salamis and Plataea, where they would turn the tide. Leonidas became a symbol of bravery, his statue still standing in modern-day Sparta. For centuries, this battle has been retold in poems, films, and classrooms, not for its scale, but for its soul. It reminds us that sometimes, standing firm in the face of doom can shape the destiny of nations. The hot gates will forever burn in the memory of freedom. How does a man conquer the known world before his 33rd birthday? Born in a small kingdom, Alexander rose like a storm, brilliant, bold, and nearly unstoppable. His ambition wasn't just to rule, but to leave a legacy written in stone, sand, and blood. Every step he took reshaped civilizations, connecting East and West like never before. But behind the myth was a mortal man, haunted by destiny and driven by vision. His story is not just one of battles, but of philosophy, culture, and youthful brilliance. Few men have changed the world so quickly. Fewer still burned so brightly, only to vanish so young. Alexander's tale is as epic as it is tragic. Alexander was born in 356 BCE in Pella, the capital of Macedonia. His father, King Philip II, was a brilliant military strategist who united Greece through force and diplomacy. But young Alexander wasn't just trained for war. He was taught by Aristotle himself. Philosophy, science, and literature shaped his mind alongside swordplay and tactics. He studied Achilles, idolized heroes, and believed greatness was his birthright. Even as a teenager, he led troops in battle and earned respect from seasoned generals. When Philip was assassinated, Alexander, just 20, seized the throne. The boy king quickly crushed rebellions and secured his kingdom. And then he set his sights far beyond Greece. The Persian Empire was the most powerful in the world, until Alexander challenged it. In 334 BCE, he crossed into Asia with 40,000 troops and a vision of glory. At the Battle of Granicus, he defeated Persian satraps and sent a clear message. The boy was no pretender. Then came the Battle of Issus, where Alexander's army crushed King Darius III's much larger force. He didn't just want victory, he wanted legacy. He entered Egypt as a liberator, founded the city of Alexandria, and was declared a god by local priests. Every battle brought him deeper into legend, but the true test awaited beyond the Tigris. Darius was not finished yet. The decisive moment came at Gaugamela in 331 BCE, Alexander's masterpiece. Vastly outnumbered, he outmaneuvered Darius with daring cavalry charges and flawless formations. The Persian line shattered, and Darius fled once more. Alexander marched into Babylon, Susa, and finally, Persepolis, the jewel of the Persian Empire. In a controversial move, he burned Persepolis, symbolizing the fall of Persia and vengeance for past invasions of Greece. But this conquest changed him. No longer just Greek, Alexander began adopting Persian dress and customs. He married local nobles and demanded his men treat conquered people as equals. His army, tired but loyal, followed into the unknown. East was now his frontier. Alexander pushed further into modern-day Afghanistan and beyond. He faced fierce resistance from mountain tribes and elusive warlords, but his ambition never faded. At the Battle of the Hydaspes River in India, he met King Porus, one of his toughest opponents. Even in victory, Alexander admired Porus and made him an ally. But the endless campaigning wore down his men who longed to return home. Near the Ganges, his army mutinied, refusing to go further. Alexander, though heartbroken, finally turned back. Along the return, he fought rebellions, explored unknown lands, and planned new cities. He wasn't just a conqueror, he was shaping a new world order, one ruled by fusion, not force. In 323 BCE, Alexander died in Babylon. He was only 32. Some say fever, others suspect poisoning. No one knows for sure. His empire stretched from Greece to Egypt to India, yet he left no clear heir. Chaos followed. His generals, the Diadochi, divided his realm and plunged into war. Yet Alexander's influence didn't fade. The cities he built thrived. Greek culture spread through Asia, mixing with local traditions in what we now call Hellenism. He had united East and West under a single vision, however briefly. His death left a vacuum not just of power, but of potential. The man who had never lost a battle, lost to time itself. He conquered the known world by 32 and died without a clear heir. Alexander the Great's death in 323 BCE didn't just end a life, it shattered an empire. He had ruled from Greece to India, commanding loyalty with charisma and conquest. But when he died suddenly in Babylon, no one knew who should lead next. There was no succession plan, no designated ruler, just a vast kingdom held together by force and fear. Alexander fell ill in June 323 BCE after a banquet in Babylon. Within days, he was gone. Some blamed fever, others whispered poison. As he lay dying, his commanders asked who would inherit his empire. His answer? To the strongest. With no clear successor, only his half-brother Philip III, who was mentally unfit, and an unborn son, Alexander the Forker, chaos erupted. The empire was leaderless, vast, and filled with ambition. Alexander's top generals, known as the Diadochi, Greek for successors, began jockeying for control. Men like Ptolemy, Seleucus, Antigonus, Lysimachus, and Cassander had once fought side by side. Now, they turned their armies on each other. What was meant to be a regency for Alexander's heirs quickly became a battlefield for power. Territories were seized, treaties made and broken. The unity of the empire shattered as former friends became rivals. To cement their own power, some Diadochi eliminated Alexander's direct descendants. His wife Roxana and their son Alexander IV were murdered, likely under orders from Cassander. Philip III was also executed. The royal bloodline was wiped out. With no legitimate heirs left, the generals no longer had to pretend loyalty. The empire was officially up for grabs. What had been a single kingdom under one visionary leader splintered into separate dynasties, each claiming to uphold Alexander's legacy, while warring for their own gain. His dream of unity died with his family. By the late 3rd century BCE, 3 dominant Hellenistic kingdoms had emerged from the rubble. Ptolemy ruled Egypt, founding the Ptolemaic dynasty that lasted until Cleopatra. Seleucus controlled vast eastern territories, forming the Seleucid Empire. Antigonid rulers held onto parts of Macedonia and Greece. Though often at war, these kingdoms spread Greek culture, language, and ideas across Asia and Africa. Cities like Alexandria in Egypt became centers of science, art, and philosophy. Alexander's empire was gone, but Hellenism thrived. His vision of a blended East and West still echoed through these successor states. Despite political collapse, Alexander's influence reshaped the ancient world. Greek became the language of trade, diplomacy, and learning across 3 continents. Local cultures blended with Greek traditions, producing unique art, architecture, and religion. Buddhist statues in India took on Greek forms. Egyptian deities were given Hellenic names. The Hellenistic Age was born, a period of cultural cross-pollination sparked by one man's conquests. His generals ruled separately, but the ideas Alexander unleashed were unstoppable. Even Rome, centuries later, would borrow heavily from Hellenistic science, art, and warfare. As the successor kingdoms weakened through internal conflict, a new power grew in the West: Rome. One by one, the Romans defeated the Hellenistic states. Macedonia fell. The Seleucid Empire crumbled. Finally, Egypt was annexed after the death of Cleopatra in 30 BCE. Alexander's dream of empire had come full circle, absorbed into a new imperial order. Ironically, though Rome conquered Greece, it was deeply influenced by it. Roman generals read about Alexander. Roman emperors tried to imitate him. His empire was gone, but his legend had become immortal. Alexander the Great left no lasting dynasty, no capital that bore his rule, and no heir to follow him. But he left something far more powerful: a world forever changed. His conquests connected East and West, sparking a global exchange of culture, language, and ideas. His name became a symbol of ambition, brilliance, and flawed greatness. Every leader who dreamed big looked back to him. He didn't just carve borders, he carved legends. And though his empire shattered like glass, the ripples of his impact still shape the world we know today. What if the world's first temple was built not after agriculture, but before it? Göbekli Tepe flips everything we thought we knew about civilization on its head. In the dry hills of southeastern Turkey, archaeologists in the 1990s uncovered a site that would rewrite human history. Göbekli Tepe isn't just old, it's ancient beyond belief. Carbon dating places it at around 9600 BCE, making it twice as old as Stonehenge and the pyramids of Egypt. But here's the twist. This massive temple complex wasn't built by farmers or city dwellers. It was created by hunter-gatherers. That's right. People with no permanent homes, no farming, and no metal tools somehow carved massive stone pillars weighing up to 20 tons and arranged them in intricate circles. It challenged the assumption that religion came after agriculture. Göbekli Tepe wasn't a simple structure. It's a massive, multi-ringed monument with towering T-shaped limestone pillars carved with detailed reliefs of animals, birds, insects, and abstract symbols. Some of the carvings are so detailed, you can see muscles, feathers, and even movement captured in stone. These were not random decorations. They seem to reflect a symbolic system, maybe even an early form of spirituality or myth-making. But here's the mystery. These people had no writing system, no pottery, and no domesticated animals. Yet they somehow organized large groups, sourced materials from miles away, and constructed a site with complex engineering. It's as if spirituality, not farming, was the glue that first bound people into societies. For decades, historians believed that agriculture sparked civilization, that once humans settled down to grow crops, they developed religion, writing, and art. Göbekli Tepe says otherwise. This temple was likely a sacred gathering place where seasonal hunter-gatherers met for rituals, feasts, or ceremonies. Some archaeologists believe it was these shared spiritual experiences that led people to stay in one place, and eventually to farm the land nearby. If that's true, religion may have caused agriculture, not the other way around. The implications are enormous. It suggests that our deepest human urge for meaning and connection may be the true foundation of civilization. Strangely, after centuries of use, the builders of Göbekli Tepe didn't just abandon it, they intentionally buried it. The entire site was backfilled with tons of debris and soil, preserving the stone carvings in pristine condition. Why they did this remains one of the site's greatest mysteries. Some suggest a change in belief systems, while others think new religious centers emerged, and Göbekli Tepe was no longer relevant. Whatever the reason, the burial worked. The site lay hidden beneath a dusty hilltop for nearly 10,000 years, untouched by conquerors, weather, or even time itself. Its preservation makes it a one-of-a-kind time capsule into the prehistoric mind. Although Göbekli Tepe was known to locals for decades, it wasn't until Klaus Schmidt, a German archaeologist, began full excavation in 1995 that its importance became clear. Since then, only a small fraction of the site has been unearthed, less than 10%, according to experts. What lies beneath the untouched layers could be even older or more elaborate. But not everyone agrees on its interpretation. Some believe it was a temple. Others argue it could have been a communal feasting site or even a burial ground. And of course, fringe theories abound, from aliens to lost advanced civilizations. But the truth may be even more mind-blowing. It shows just how sophisticated early humans were, long before we gave them credit. Today, Göbekli Tepe is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most important archaeological finds of the 21st century. It forces us to rethink the story of humanity, not as a slow, linear climb, but as a patchwork of breakthroughs and forgotten wisdom. This temple, built by people without wheels or cities, speaks of a time when the sacred took precedence over the practical. A time when humans looked to the stars, carved their myths in stone, and gathered not for survival, but for something greater. What drove them to do it? We may never know for sure. But Göbekli Tepe stands as a silent monument to the power of belief and the mystery of our own beginnings. How did a civilization with no machines raise millions of stone blocks into perfect pyramids that still stand 4,500 years later? Long before cranes and concrete, the ancient Egyptians engineered structures that continue to puzzle modern architects. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2600 BCE, was the tallest man-made structure for over 3,800 years. It was made from over 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing between 2 to 80 tons. These blocks weren't just stacked at random, they were aligned with astronomical precision. Modern laser scans show its base is nearly perfectly level, with sides aligned to true north within a fraction of a degree. Ancient surveyors used tools like plumb bobs and merkets to measure straight lines and right angles. Without iron tools or wheels, they accomplished what seemed impossible. The planning alone would have taken decades, revealing a deep understanding of mathematics and astronomy. Transporting the stones was just as complex as building the pyramid itself. Most stones came from nearby quarries, but granite blocks were hauled from Aswan, over 500 miles away. Workers likely floated them along the Nile on massive wooden barges, using the river's current during flooding season. Once ashore, they built slick mud or water-lubricated ramps to drag the stones across the sand. New evidence suggests large sleds and teams of workers pulled blocks with wet sand, reducing friction. Some ramps may have spiraled around the pyramid or been built straight up with gradual inclines. Rope holes found in nearby stones support these dragging methods. It wasn't brute strength alone, it was brilliant logistics on a national scale. Who actually built these monumental structures? For years, myths suggested slaves, but archaeology tells a different story. Skilled laborers, stonecutters, masons, engineers, and artisans formed a massive workforce supported by a national infrastructure. Excavations near Giza have uncovered workers' villages complete with bakeries, breweries, and medical facilities. These weren't prisoners. They were well-fed laborers, rotating in and out in shifts of thousands. Some even left graffiti on the pyramid blocks, proudly naming their teams things like the Drunkards of Menkar. Skeletons show signs of healed. Injuries meaning workers received medical care. Their role was vital, and they were honored for it. But why go to such extremes to build these pyramids? Beyond tombs, they were spiritual launch pads, portals to the afterlife. Ancient Egyptians believed the pharaoh was a living god, and the pyramid helped his soul ascend to the heavens. The At pyramid's shape symbolized the sacred Benben stone and the rays of the sun god Ra. Burial chambers were deep inside, filled with treasures, spells, and food for eternity. Hieroglyphs and artwork on the walls reinforced the journey of the soul, guiding it through trials to reach immortality. The sheer size wasn't just for prestige, it was a statement of divine order, cosmic balance, and the pharaoh's eternal legacy. The precision of pyramid construction is still jaw-dropping. The Great Pyramid's sides measure about 230 meters each, yet they differ by less than 5 centimeters. Blocks were fitted so tightly that not even a blade can slip between them. Builders used copper chisels and dolerite pounders to shape stone, which seems primitive, yet it worked with astounding accuracy. Internal passageways and air shafts align with stars and solstices, hinting at both spiritual and astronomical intent. Even the pyramid's placement on a limestone plateau near the Nile was strategic, ensuring stability and visibility. This wasn't just architecture, it was sacred geometry made real. Today, the pyramids still stand as icons of human ingenuity. Tourists walk their ancient steps, and scientists continue uncovering new secrets buried in sand and stone. We now use drones, thermal imaging, and muon detectors to explore hidden chambers inside these colossal tombs. The more we learn, the more respect we gain for the people who built them without modern tools or technology. The pyramids remind us that determination, organization, and vision can achieve the extraordinary. In honoring their pharaohs, the Egyptians built something even more lasting, their own eternal legacy, written in stone. What if I told you humanity may have lost thousands of years of knowledge in a single fire? The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building. It was the beating heart of ancient science, philosophy, and literature. Founded in the 3rd century BCE under the reign of Ptolemy I, the Library of Alexandria was envisioned as a center of learning for the entire world. Scholars from across Egypt, Greece, India, and Persia came to study its texts. It's believed the library may have held between 400,000 to 1 million scrolls, many of them unique. Texts on mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and lost civilizations filled the shelves. This was a time when copying books meant hand-copying them letter by letter, so each scroll was priceless. The library wasn't just a place, it was a revolution in how humanity stored and shared knowledge. The librarians of Alexandria weren't ordinary workers. They were some of the most brilliant minds of their time. Thinkers like Euclid, Archimedes, and Eratosthenes walked its halls. Eratosthenes even calculated the Earth's circumference, with amazing accuracy using just shadows and math. Ships arriving at Alexandria's port were required to surrender their books so they could be copied into the library. The original texts were kept. The copies were returned. This wasn't just about preservation. It was about dominance through knowledge. Alexandria was becoming the brain of the ancient world. So how did it all go up in flames? One of the earliest recorded incidents happened in 48 BCE during Julius Caesar's civil war. As Caesar's fleet burned in Alexandria's harbor, flames reportedly spread to parts of the city, including warehouses and areas near the library. Ancient sources like Plutarch and Seneca hint that thousands of scrolls may have been lost in this fire. But was this the fire that doomed the library? Probably not. Some parts survived. The real destruction came later, through layers of conflict, neglect, and shifting powers. Over the next few centuries, the library suffered from repeated blows. Under Emperor Aurelian in the 3rd century CE, Alexandria was again attacked, and much of the city's royal quarter was destroyed. Later, when Christianity rose in the Roman Empire, pagan temples and symbols of ancient knowledge were increasingly targeted. In 391 CE, Theophilus, the Christian patriarch, oversaw the destruction of pagan institutions, possibly including what remained of the library. Bit by bit, what hadn't burned was silenced or lost. This wasn't a single blaze. It was a slow, painful death of a civilization's wisdom. One of the most haunting stories tied to the library's fall is the murder of Hypatia, a renowned mathematician, philosopher, and astronomer. In 415 CE, she was brutally killed by a Christian mob, accused of promoting pagan knowledge. Hypatia had been a symbol of the old world's brilliance, a direct link to the legacy of Alexandria's intellectual golden age. Her death marked not just the loss of a scholar, but the end of an era. After her, the flame flickered out almost completely. Ironically, for a place dedicated to documentation, we don't know exactly how the Library of Alexandria fell. Ancient historians wrote conflicting accounts. Some say the final blow came with the Muslim conquest of Egypt in the 7th century, but modern scholars debate this. What's certain is this: the loss was incalculable. Imagine ancient treatises on surgery, astronomy, or philosophy, gone. The knowledge of lost civilizations, wiped from memory. The world had to rediscover knowledge, centuries later that we may have once already possessed. But what if the greatest tragedy wasn't what burned, but what was never read again? Some of the scrolls held ideas and inventions that may have far outpaced their time. Forgotten blueprints, ancient languages, early scientific methods, or even philosophies that could have reshaped the modern world. It's not just the physical loss. It's the cultural silence that followed. Civilizations built on oral traditions, myths, and fragile scrolls couldn't withstand time without a sanctuary like Alexandria. When its shelves turned to ash, humanity didn't just lose documents. We lost alternate futures. Futures we'll never know we missed. What if opening a tomb could seal your fate? In 1922, the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb sparked global fascination and whispers of a deadly curse. But was the curse real, or just a myth wrapped in gold? In ancient Egypt, tombs were not just burial chambers. They were eternal homes for the afterlife. Pharaohs were seen as divine, and their tombs were built to protect them and their treasures for eternity. The tomb of Tutankhamun, buried in the Valley of the Kings, followed this tradition: chariots, statues, weapons, and even food. The purpose was clear: to ensure a smooth journey to the afterlife and safeguard his soul. Tombs weren't just practical. They were spiritual machines, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul to immortality. The artwork and positioning of each item followed religious rituals meant to awaken eternal life. Tutankhamun became pharaoh at just 9 years old and died under mysterious circumstances around age 18. His reign was short and relatively uneventful politically, but his tomb became the most famous archaeological